Good morning. It's Sunday. It's May 23rd, I believe. This is a pan of the FDR National Home Site in the National Park System, and that's a picture of the Visitor Center, the Wallace Center, and panning over to the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Presidential Library, the first presidential library ever built. And then this is panning to the home garden, where I'm going to be basically touring the small space gardening exhibit, which is in the home garden. And the home garden has been reestablished as it was from the records of the gardener during the Roosevelt's time, for Sarah and James Roosevelt. And all the food is being harvested for a local nonprofit, Duchess Outreach. And here we go on the tour. It's about 9 o'clock or so. Hot and hazy. And now we're entering the Roosevelt home garden. In the field cropped artichokes, kale. I don't know, I haven't been involved with the plantings, but there's peas and lettuces in the field already. So up until 2016, this was a parking lot. When FDR passed, so many people came to pay their respects at the Presidential Library that they took the original home garden and paved it into a parking lot. There is the greenhouse, which was grown, well, it was run mostly for establishment of cut rose flowers throughout the year. And here is the lettuce being set out in beds for the Duchess Outreach Program, and peas climbing up concrete rewire trellis. Hot, hazy, humid day today. And now the small space gardening exhibit has a permanent home location, which is nice, not to have to deconstruct every fall and put it away into storage. This is just a plywood box that is a tiered growing system. You know, it's great for herbs. Be sited near a kitchen door, and you can pack a lot of herbs in there. And it's set up that the water's from the top, and then the soil is continuous all the way through. So the water just perks down from the top and feeds the other layers. And then on this side is a bed, a crib. I call it the tomatillo crib, growing tomatillas. Tomatillas tend to get knocked down and blown over by wind and heavy rains. And this is coming up into the potter's bench. And I like to show people systems for maximizing the efficiency of growing their own food. So this is a lath house. It's 50% shade from the lath. And underneath is a plastic cover so that rains don't wash out the seedlings. And I'm going to zoom back down here again. Haven't used a Steadicam in a while. So this is set up as a potting bench, pretty much. The potting mix is in a tub. And you fill up your seed flats. And if you plant these cells, I'd say once every 3 weeks or so, you always have on hand a series of lettuces. I'm establishing a solar system, pretty much to show people how they can incorporate solar power into the garden. You know, for soil heat cables, LED lights to grow plants indoors, to enhance germination of some plants with LED lights, for aeration of water so that it's oxygenated for hydroponic growing. But this is all set up so that you have your seeds and all your potting is done outdoors, not at the kitchen table, and it becomes seamless. And then from there, this is a feed trough. It's a stock feed trough. It's 10 feet long, and it's designed to hold 30 heads of lettuce. So you can pick one head of lettuce every single night, every single day, throughout the whole growing season. And then once a week, you go to your bench, your potting bench, and pull 7 plugs, and it's very easy. You just pop the plug out of the seed tray and just replace the 7 heads that you've harvested that week. This is all irrigated. I'll put on the irrigation system. And you can see that this is designed to have it has a 2-inch water reservoir at the bottom. So there's drain holes. There's drain holes all along the bottom of the trough. And so if it rains heavy, excess water will just go out those drain holes. And you can't overwater with the drip irrigation either, as it will also drain out the drain holes. So this is a 4-zone timer. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to override it and just put it onto manual, so you can see the irrigation system. So the potting bench is set up with misters. So twice a day, they come on to mist the seedlings. So there's absolutely no watering. There's no maintenance that you have to do. And the seedlings don't wash out from heavy rains. And they have 50% shade from the sun. And there's my coffee. This is a hanging garden. I just took a piece of steel roofing and bent it. And this is planted this season with quinault, Quinault. Bees are loving it right now. They're loving pollinating the strawberry flowers and also the flowering kale. This is the 2nd year of the kale. There's some strawberries. This is a day-neutral strawberry variety, which means that it'll produce all season long. And yeah, they're all over the flowers of the kale. So kale is a biennial. It's in the brassica family, cabbage, cauliflower. So it doesn't seed until the 2nd year. And then this feed trough was planted with Russian red kale, onion sets, red and white onions, and then various lettuces, red lettuce and a butter crunch. I think mostly just butter crunch and the red lettuce. And it's great. It's up off the ground. If you live in a condominium, you can generally get permission from the condo because it's not something that's a permanent structure. It's not in the ground. And if there's like a community space or something in the condo, you set it up with self-watering. And you have a way to grow fresh greens, grow anything, cabbages, any of your food. A kiosk is on order. We're going to have a real live kiosk coming, and that'll be for the entrance. The garden, the small space garden exhibit is laid out with these QPCs. I don't know, forget the name of it. But it's an audio tour, and I haven't connected, so you can just go to that site and hear the audio tour. This is new for 2021. This is basically a grow box, but this is a totally passive system. So this is starts opening at about 62 degrees. What it is there's a cylinder that's filled with wax. And when it starts warming up, that wax expands and pushes a piston. And it raises the lid, it'll be able to lift 25 pounds. And you can tell it's full vent right now, so it's already in the 80s. What's nice about it is it's completely passive, so you don't have to worry about covering it, making sure it's shut at night during frost nights, and you don't have to worry about opening up if you leave the house on a cloudy day and the sun comes out and you scorch you just burn your plants alive unless they're vented, and it just automatically does all of that, as does the water system. So it just makes growing that much easier. This is new. Also, I put in a bed here for a nursery bed, so the plants can be healed in until there's time to get them in the ground. These are trellis tomatoes. This is going to be, these tomatoes are going to be trained to one stem, and then they'll go all the way up on leader cord up to the overhead suspension cable chain. And then when they reach the top, they're just lowered down. The whole stem is lowered down, and your tomatoes will grow about 18-20 feet or so in a season. And this is a display box for a two-stem culture. So you can already see I've set up the second stem here. I took the first sucker that I like, so this will be a two-stem. And then as it's growing, I just will pick out all of the... Oh, bumped the Steadicam. I will pick out all the suckers and trim off all the lower leaves. You can already see I've taken off the lower leaves here. And that'll go up. And hard to shoot into the sun. And again, that goes to leader cords that once it gets to the top of the pole, it's just dropped down. This is just establish this up for shopping bags, recycle bags, the ones that have netting, or that if you hold up to the light, you can see light passing through them. You want something that's porous. And then when the rootlets grow to the edge of the bag, they air prune. They won't grow into air. And so things that you grow in recycle bags that are porous, that have that, you can see through them, grow a beautiful network of root systems. This is the African keyhole compost garden. It's called keyhole because you step into it. And this is all vermiculture. And all your kitchen scraps go in there. And you don't have to do any mixing, any turning, add anything. Bananas, peels, all your vegetable scraps go in there, and the worms do all of the digesting. Basically, they have access right through the wire hardware cloth. So they access all those scraps. And this has just been set up for the season. So it says stage door worm castings. But then once it's fully established, I can just go in here and pull out the worm castings to go and feed the garden soils. Not seeing too much worm activity right now. It's again just getting started. It's called keyhole since you enter into it, and it's a nice surface to plant and grow in because it's waist height up off the ground. You don't have invasive weeds coming into it, and you can concentrate your potting mix, your vegetable soil, so that you can maximize what you buy in for growing your vegetables. These are water tables. Again, these are feed troughs, but they have stones basically so algae doesn't form. And so there's a 2-inch layer of water there. And these are grow bags. And again, they're porous. They're air porous, water porous. So again, when the rootlets come to the edge, they air prune. And then this root stem, the stem sends out more and more rootlets. So you get a beautiful network of root system developing. This is all set up again for drip irrigation. And we'll spin that on. over this timer. Just again manually override it. And these are called orbit emitters. And you can dial them out for more water, less water. Bees are out full activity today. Don't want too much in that. This is set up for a continuous feed. This has a float valve. Works just like your toilet reservoir tank. So when it calls for water, you have to look closely, but it's feeding water in now. And then when it's up to level, it shuts off. So it automatically maintains the level of water. You have to do nothing to these plants other than harvest the produce. More of the water, the drip irrigation. And in this grow box, I have a eggplant planted. I think it's Ichiban, a Japanese long cylindrical eggplant. This is new for 2021. This is cattle panel. It's about $23 a panel. They're 16 feet long by 50 inches wide. I put some polycarbonate roofing on it. This material will last 20 years. It resists hail, and it's much better than polyethylene sheeting, the common plastic sheets, which just degrade by the sun. UV breakdown in a season, 2 seasons at the most. Plus you can't see through it. This is transparent. It's kind of nice, and you can be inside here, and you have a greenhouse. We'll just have to basically build ends for it. But the panels themselves, the polycarbonate panels, are about $23 a piece. So you can build a full 6 by 8 greenhouse. That would be 2 widths of cattle panel for $200, including the glazing, the polycarbonate sheets to go over it. So all you would have, the extra expense and time you would have, would be just to finish off the ends. But you can go to a recycle store, get an old door, put it in there, box it off with some plywood, and you have a greenhouse for $200. This is going to be the loofah tunnel this year. Loofah like growing in an arch because they hang down off of the arch and they grow much straighter that way. And then in the loofah tunnel then leads to the kids' Veggie Hut, and it's just an old wooden umbrella frame. And we plant it with a lot of vegetables, so when kids come here they can pick right off the walls of the Veggie Hut. We'll put in sun gold tomatoes and the beans usually, maybe some cucumbers. And put on, a lot of this system is also on impact sprinkler, simply because I kind of ran out of time to do everything by drip irrigation. This is a modified Dutch bucket system. So how this works is that these are called net cups, and they fit right in the bottom of the bucket into a rain gutter. And that's a 10-foot long rain gutter. So those net cups sit right in the water, and then they wick up the water from the bottom. Here's another float valve calling for water, and then it automatically shuts off. So it maintains that level of water, and you have to do no watering. And again, very little weeding because you're using a soil mix. You need to use some form of peat moss or coconut coir to absorb the water, to wick it up through the buckets. It won't work to just put dirt in them because dirt is not a good wicking material. But this really grows really nice vegetables, and all you're doing is harvesting. I put it a little higher up off the ground so people can see that you can do this on a patio roof, a rooftop, deck, cement deck. New for 2021 is the carrot cake. So these are all grow bags. I left some of it open. I'm going to get rained on here. So you can see that this has the bottom still of the grow bag. And that's a 100-gallon grow bag at the bottom. The tan one is 45, the gray one is 15, and the top one is 1 gallon. This is a square foot garden modeled after Mel Bartholomew's work. He was the most prolific home vegetable garden writer for almost 5 decades. He passed in 2017. But his idea was to focus people, so everything is laid out into a foot grid. And then he wrote books about how much you can plant of each type of vegetable in that square. But it allowed people to really focus on a set area in terms of weeding and watering, and not to get overwhelmed by, getting a large pot, a piece of dirt tilled up and then getting overwhelmed with watering, weeding, and upkeep of a dirt garden. This is the bicycle rope pump. Rope pumps are old, 2,000-year-old technology or so. They simply took a rope and put a knot in it, and then that knot travels up a pipe and carries the water up. And this one is designed to lift, this one's lifting 8 feet. And this is just a series of plumbing washers. And there's knots on either side to hold the washer. And then it simply turns, the ropes go down into the water and then come up through the pipe. Voila, very simple technology. They would harness them to bicycles, other pedals, and be able to irrigate their fields or get water to their vegetable fields. I gotta wipe off the lens. It's probably got wet. Sorry for that. All right, continuing along. Again, so there's no watering, and that's weeding and watering are kind of and frost protection are kind of like the really tough things for home growers. With working with jobs, other schedules. So as much that can be taken care of like automatically with water systems and with weed containment, container growing, just makes growing that much more doable and more realistic. All of this garden is laid out with cardboard. There's cardboard panels throughout the garden. And then we put wood chips on top of it. And the wood chips basically keep the cardboard moist. And then the earthworms will digest that cardboard in a season. So all this cardboard will be digested by earthworms by the end of the season. And it there's no weeding. There's no weeding to do in this garden. I mean, there's occasional spot weeding, but not much. This is straw bale culture. I kind of laid it out as a labyrinth. These are still composting, but they're cooling down now. Temperature is at 80. They'll get up to 130 when they're actively breaking down and composting. And they'll be planting, the rangers will be planting. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to be planting, but you can plant any kind of vegetable in them. And they work really well. So you can put those right on top of a stony soil or something that's not tilled or broken up, and you can start gardening right away. The roots will grow down into the soil, but it gets the plant started above the soil level. It's up higher, so it's just easier to work on. Again, you got a concentrated space to maintain, and it grows great plants. The pot culture in the container is going to be the grain garden this year, so there'll be quinoa, maybe sorghum, amaranth, some sweet corn probably, but other grains. Veggie Hut, there's some sugar snap peas coming up and a Kentucky brown pole bean. This is rubber roll roofing. It's a very thick rubber matting that is used commercially for factory roofs, for flat roofs. They roll this out. Then I just cut holes according to the plant that's going to go in. I made this pretty much for brassicas, broccoli, cauliflower, kale. So it has a fairly large hole, but the plants are just set into that hole. There's a soaker water line underneath, so the plants are automatically watered. And then there's just straw put between on the plants on top of the rubber just to keep the mat from getting too hot, and keeping the plants cooler. But there's absolutely no weeding with this and no watering. And then the rubber itself acts as a mulch so that it prevents evaporation. So you have less amount of evaporation, which you also have with all the cardboard. It conserves the moisture in the ground, so you're not having to water quite as much. This is new for 2021. This is a Hugelkultur, German technology of basically digging trenches, burying logs, and then a series of less and less diameter, working with branches, leaves, any other kind of compostable materials, and you just build a mound, and it's in there for 15, 20 years or so. Needs no maintenance. So it's self-feeding because of all the microbial activity, and the fungus activity is creating the food for the plants. Again, that has a drip line running through it. See the drip line dripping there. And so it's self-watering. And again, we put a potting mix on the top, so there's easy. It holds in some of the moisture. The peat moss retains some of the moisture, and it's also easy to work and weed-free. This is the newest exhibit. This is called Water Babies. And this is a round sugar baby watermelon. And it's in a kiddie pool. And there's holes drilled 2 inches from the bottom all around the circumference. So any excess water will go out those holes. So it maintains a 2-inch level of water, like the water tables. So you can see the water is right in here. The stones keep it covered so you don't get algae growth. And it minimizes that evaporation of the water. And no weeding. And those watermelons are in grow bags. They're very happy, by the way. They want me to tell you. And they have some straw to conserve moisture, help prevent any weed seeds from getting established, and some stones on the top too. Stones also work as a mulch to prevent some of the evaporation. This is just a traditional trellis, and I have peas planted on this. I think I had a couple of Kentucky brown pole beans in it, and some lettuces, red, and a black-seeded Simpson. This is a cardboard box. This is our Amazon recycling program. Just take a cardboard box. The oak stakes are there just to give some support to the box. And that's it. You open up the bottom, fold the flaps up, so it's an open bottom container. It has a drip line running through it. That we put on, I just put it on a self-timer, so the rangers can set that at any time they feel that it needs extra watering. And in there is broccoli, red and white onions, black-seeded Simpson lettuce. I put some spinach in there today. But again, it's up off the ground. It's a recyclable material. The cardboard will just, decompose. But by being up off the ground and, being filled, it's filled almost 2/3 with wood chips. And the wood chips, they don't ever get to the point where they're like saturated with water, so the cardboard box stays intact for the whole growing season. And it's a great way to lay out something before you commit to building more permanent structure of a contained garden or a raised box bed. Get a cardboard box and you're in business. Fill it with some potting mix and bring up the level. With wood chips. You don't want to be filling the whole thing with a growing mixer. I mean, the plants don't need that much, and it gets too soggy too. So the primary thing with most of the large containers is they're filled about 2/3 with wood chips. This is a gray plastic trough, and it just has a superstructure of lattice work with just EMT, which is electrical material tubing, electrical conduit, and some cross members of bamboo. And I put up some netting and stuff. So peas are going up here. Sugar snap peas are going to grow up the back. And in the trough itself are, again, onions. This is a Russian red kale. and a multicolored lettuce. I'm not exactly sure the name of that lettuce. And again, this has holes drilled 2 inches from the bottom all along here. So any excess water just comes out those drain holes. It has stones 2 inches from the bottom. And this is a sight tube. Come on, scroll down. All right, there you are. And again, here's the layer of stones down the tube. So there's a layer of water in there. So the roots are constantly having access to that layer of water. So they never dry out. And it's the ideal growing condition for plants. They're never water stressed at all. And this is set up with, again, drip irrigation that's on a timer. Again, here's the orbits. And then coming around to the tomatillo crib, and then we're finishing up here with the Three Sisters planting. Three Sisters was indigenous plantings in the U.S., and the indigenous tribes would plant corn, beans, and squash. The squash would form a ground cover and would smother out weed development. It would just shade any developing weeds, starve them of sunlight. And then the beans are climbing. They would climb up the corn stalks, and the beans add nitrogen to the soil. They're nitrogen fixing, and also a good source of protein, of course. And then the nitrogen from the beans in the root system would feed the corn, because corn is a heavy feeder. So in here is sweet corn. Actually, nope. No, this is ornamental corn I have planted in there. I just set it out this morning from plugs. And then I put these PVC 4-inch collars around it, just because we had such decimation last year with chipmunks and squirrels. The chipmunks especially, they would take a sprouted corn and just dig it up, and they had everything there. They had their salad and their grain too. So they would eat the seedling and the seed of corn still. So I found last year I had good success with just putting these collars around the corn, and they just made it hard access for the chipmunks to uproot the developing seedling. And back to the bees. All the bees today. They're just really enjoying the strawberries and the kale. And that's a wrap. Happy Sunday.